And Michael, I think you're up first. Just kind of give us a rundown on staffing and maybe how first day went.
Yep. So overall, staffing is in a good place. Let me just start with that. It's in a good place. Now let me get to more of the detail. All right. And let me just back this up. When I say staffing is in a good place, we are fully staffed with classroom teachers, face-to-face people. As you'll see, we have 2 positions we haven't been able to fill, so to speak, but we're fully staffed with all those situations. So we're feeling really good. Here's what it looks like. We have Elevated K-12, McKinley, and that is going to be 4 sections of mathematics, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry. We got the 4th one. I don't think it's an Algebra 3 or whatever, something like that. So that's over at McKinley. It's going to be really interesting to talk to Steph at the end of this week, next week. How's it going? What's it seem like? But so far, so good. We have 3 teachers with Emergis. Remember, Emergis is the, I like to say they're a company that just,
Oh, yeah.
the headhunter type of
Yeah,
company.
yeah, yeah.
That says, hey, you're looking for a math teacher, we've got somebody you might be interested in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So anyway, we went with Emergis on a general music teacher over at Madison. We went with Emergis on an ELA teacher at Lincoln High School. Both of those people are retirees out of in the area from Wisconsin. And I think the reason they're going with Emergis is because they want to work full-time. Remember, you cannot work full-time as a retiree. Taking your WRS, you can only work like 66% time, which is problematic for us and them if they want to be.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's interesting. We also hired a spec ed teacher through Emergis at Jackson Elementary School. Inexperienced, LWS1, one of those types of situations, but wants to be a special education teacher, has some background with working with children with disabilities, da-da-da-da-da. So we're hoping it's going to be a good fit and it's going to work out in the long run for us too. We've hired a speech language person through Lifetime Therapy Services, contracted, virtual. We have, by the way, we have 2 virtual SLP teachers. One is over in Appleton, and this one we just hired is on the other side of the state. And 2 is the most we'll hire if we're able to find a person or anything. 3rd one is going to be on-site. Katie does not want to go with any more virtual SLP, so it would be on-site. So we also are working with Educational Interpreting Services, contracted service for 2 sign language interpreters. We just haven't been able to find anybody that's certified and stuff like that. So, and those are on site, those positions.
What's the FTE need for sign language interpreters?
2.0. That type of, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so 2 full-time positions we need on hand.
2 full-time positions on site, and we're working with Educational Interpreting Services to contract with them to get those 2 people on site. Janine Young has been working with me and Katie and that stuff, so to my knowledge, it's been going forward, so it should be there. So and that would make us, relative to our sign language educational needs, fully staffed. Would be good. So, we're also working with Cultural Vistas Teacher Exchange Program, and this is the program that we're working with relative to Jovelyn de los Reyes out of the Philippines. Sorry, I was trying to remember which way that goes. Out of the Philippines. This has been a really, really interesting learning experience. There's just no doubt about it. She will have her J1 visa, not her HB1. And as a J1, this Cultural Vista program, they're the sponsor. We're not the sponsor. Whereas if you're an HB1, then we're the sponsor, and there's more legalities and stuff to that. This is like a 3 to 5 year type program. 5 years is the max. So let's say that Jovelyn were to stay with us for 5 years. After 5 years, there's no choice. She's not an immigrant. It's an exchange type of thing. and she would end up going back to the Philippines or wherever she wanted to relocate, but couldn't be in the United States. She's a math teacher at Wilson. She was a math teacher in the Philippines for 11 years. She has a bachelor's degree in mathematics from the Philippines. She's, right now, she is, I think, next week, the 9th or 10th, she's interviewing to get this J1 visa with this program. I think it's all gonna work out. And when it does, she's going to relocate with her husband. They come in. We're expecting about October 1. We have a long-term sub mathematics until then, retiree out of the district that's willing to come back and help us out for a while. So new experience with
Wow, that's-
how it goes. You know?
J1, I was a foreign student because I think I had a J2 and it was limited to 2, so that, especially for graduate school, but yeah, well, there are ways to, well, she'd have to go back to the Philippines and apply for a green card, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I had a meeting, I'll call it a meeting, with a person with the Canadian visa. They wanted to have a meeting with me to ask me a bunch of questions, and it was, they said that this is not an immigration type of program. It's 3 to 5 years, and she has to apply every year because.
Well, she has to apply every year.
Yeah, I could have applied for a 3-year, but the 3-year was like, I don't know, let's say $3,000, and the 1 year was 1.
Whoa.
But I didn't know, I mean, I didn't want to put out the money,
Yeah.
not knowing whether this is going to come to fruition and be a good thing for both parties, So I thought, okay, and she told me, she said, Mike, most school districts go with the 1 year type of thing. So I thought, okay.
Yeah, well, once she's in, I think it becomes more rubber stamp
Yeah.
after the first year.
I would assume so.
How's her English?
Pretty doggone good,
Okay, because in math, it's
right?
pretty
I had no
important.
problem understanding her,
Yeah,
I mean, and this is our second one. We made an offer for, I think, the same position previous to this, but within a week to 10 days, that fell apart, and I really wasn't quite, the person said something about the visa wasn't working out, blah, blah, blah. So this is our second attempt to make this all work out, but this person, I mean, this is a go. I mean, she is like, when there's something needs to be done, she's on top of it. I mean,
so she's here now. Huh?
no, she's gonna be here about October 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we're still working on housing a little bit. And we had a family in town that was, at first, before we knew her husband was going to come there, this family was like, okay, we'll help her out for a month or two until she gets settled in a little bit. And then that kind of fell out. They said, well, we can't host both of them, so whatever. But I mean, Anna's worst case scenario, Anna said, hey, I get a room downstairs and they can stay with me for a little bit. So we're working on getting that all figured out. Jobelin's also working as relative right now to the housing that we're giving her. She's looking at some of that. I mean, she doesn't, there's so much to learn here. She doesn't have a social security number.
Oh,
So sometimes that poses some difficulties. We'll work through everything we need to work through, but yeah, there's.
well, how'd you know about this program?
Oh,
It's just in your bag of tricks, huh?
no, I'm glad you asked, Carrie.
Yeah.
Because we've had numerous applicants from the Philippines this year.
Really? Oh, well,
Yeah.
I know.
And of course, I mean, you hesitate a little bit, right? Well, I'm on the phone with legal counsel one day about a whole different matter. And we're talking about the teacher shortage a little bit. And he says, hey, Milwaukee, they're bringing in people from Europe, Asia, Philippines, and they have 2 FTEs that are fully dedicated to the transition to their district and the city and all that kind of stuff. And I said, oh, that's really interesting, I said, geez, I should maybe figure out who's running that show and get them.
Wow, that's really good, Mike.
So one thing just kind of led to another, and here we are,
Yeah.
So it's all and they have a 7-year-old daughter, and the daughter is staying over there for now. But intercommunications, she said maybe about December, everything is going pretty well.
But how is she bringing her husband? I mean, what kind of program is he on?
I haven't explored that.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. You know, about a third of the nurses in Ontario are from the Philippines.
Yeah.
And they, I mean, everybody thinks they're incredibly well trained and, you know, and very responsive. So, you know, no bitches up there.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so, unfilled positions, so to speak, just, here's what. I think I should count up, right? We had more math vacancies this year than I think this district's had probably in maybe every year in the history of this district. We filled about 5 of them or so, but then we just ran the gamut. We ran out of candidates, so to speak. So we ended up with a math vacancy at Lincoln High School. We collapsed 4 sections. We're doing a overload for 1. So we're able to make that work really well. Washington, we had a math vacancy. We collapsed all 5 sections. Farm knows, spread them all out, and it's working okay to my knowledge. We ended up transferring a spec ed FTE from the high school to Washington Middle School. There was less need there, and there was obviously more need there because that position needed to be filled. We had a business education position that was 0.2 Washington, 0.2 Wilson, and 0.5 the high school. And we couldn't fill that position. Elevate couldn't help us. Emergis couldn't help us. So at the end of the day, we took the 0.2, each 0.2, put those students in other electives, and we are the high school biz ed staff's doing a couple overloads up there to take care of that one. The YMCA could not fill a 4K position, and so we absorbed those, I don't know, let's say 20 students into our 4K system without any additional teachers, The SLP position that you approved 6 months ago because of the high SLP numbers. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we've hired a couple SLP people, but we had people leave too. So we are able to fill one of those positions, SLP, but we're
What's SLP?
speech language pathologist.
Oh, yeah.
Speech language pathologist.
They gotta be hard.
They're hard to find.
That's a tough program, yeah.
Yeah. So, our current people have, a little bit higher caseloads as a result of that. And then in elementary reading, that Act 20, remember you approved 2 positions to meet the needs of that Act 20 program.
Mhm.
One of the positions, we had a teacher that has a 316 reading license. I'd like to do that. And then we had some movement. We backfilled everything. So it's one of our internal people that's teaching the one reading position. The other reading position we haven't been able to fill. I don't think we're going to be able to fill it because typically it's a 316 or 317, a reading teacher, a reading specialist. And they either come from internal or external because they don't come right out of college with a 316 or 317. So we'll see where that all goes. We just had a little bit of some recent interest internally. I don't know if that's going to be a viable situation or not. We'll see what happens. Administrative positions. I'd like to say we're fully staffed. Remember the Washington and Monroe principalships were a carryover from last year.
Mhm.
The Lincoln High School AP associate principalship was a carryover from last year. So other than that, I mean,
Well, we did okay at Washington, didn't we? I mean,
I think so.
yeah.
I think the 3 people, the Washington principal, the Monroe principal, and the AP, I think we landed three solid individuals. I really do. So I feel really good,
It's good.
Yeah. So relative to administrators, we're fully staffed, Let her ask a question. Since April 1, we've hired 44 new teachers and 33 internal transfers we had, and the internal transfers, I like to say, it's people getting on the seat and the bus that they want to be in.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's, you know, and that's a good thing that we're able to meet their professional needs and keep them. So that sort of thing. Since May 1st with the clerical, and we're fully staffed with our clerical, we don't have any vacancies. We've had 7 new clerical this year and 12 internal transfers, movements. So as of right now, we have 4 unfilled para positions and 1 to 2 custodial type positions. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, 2 months ago, I was nervous. 2 weeks ago, I was relaxing. So, you know,
It's good to hear.
a lot of hard work on all of our administrators, all of our building administrators, our directors. I mean, it was just a team effort. Jennifer Blake Krieger in the HR office does wonderful work, you know, so a lot of good people making a lot of good things happen.
So, Michael, is there a way, if we go back to the teachers working for that company that can put in more than however many hours the state allows a retired teacher to do, is there a way to encourage some people to do that? I mean, I know there's people
Oh,
that
yeah.
have.
Need to get more retired people to do that.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
that, you know, they can work, what, 880 hours or something?
You need it.
You know, but maybe there's a way to work with them to say, hey, Mr. Smith retired, but he still wants to work, and, I mean, I'm assuming the salary's about the same.
I'm assuming it's all close. I mean, this one gentleman just retired just last June out of a local school district. And so I can't imagine, I don't know, him coming back to work he must be coming back to work for a wage that's pretty comparable, you know? But it does give us, you know, when somebody says, you know, geez, I'd like to work full time. I mean, I'd be like, okay, here's the person's name, here's the email address, email them and see where it goes. But I'd say, do me one favor. I want you back here.
Yeah.
Don't go somewhere else on us, you know? I mean, you know, but, yeah.
So how do they launder them that way? Like this, what's the name of the company that we're?
Burgess.
Emergis. How come they can do it that way?
Because it's a private business.
You can't,
I see.
anytime you're employed
Okay.
with a WRS employer and receiving your annuity, your pension, you're limited to this 880 hours.
Yeah,
So this is all basically just working around what the law allows.
yeah. What law, why does the law make any sense?
Well, several state legislatures in the area have reversed course on that and now have allowed because of the teacher shortage. So, I mean, that would be one thing. It would be to lobby our
Yeah, right.
representatives to make that change.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems silly that this person who lives very near here has to go through sort of a agency to get hired to work in our district so that they don't get penalized on their, it just seems like it's.
Well, since they created the problem in the first place, they should do something to.
In defense of the law, you can retire and work more than 880. However, you have to cancel your retirement.
Yeah, right,
Back
you do,
into
yeah.
WRS.
Yeah, yeah.
It is perfectly valid to do. It's just most people don't want to do that.
Correct.
Well, let me just give you an example. And Chris is absolutely correct. You can suspend your pension, your annuity, and you can work full time. So let's just say your pension is $40,000. And the district's willing to pay you $70,000. You gotta give up $40,000, so you're only making $30,000. That's why people are like, something doesn't work, you know?
Yeah,
Now,
sure.
another thing that Chris, I wanted to piggyback up Chris a little bit, is that you can work 880 hours in Manitowoc, 880 hours in Sheboygan, 880
Oh, you
hours
can.
in Green Bay, but only 880
Oh,
hours.
wow, you
Yeah,
can.
so I don't, you know, the bottom line is, the law needs to be changed. I believe that our administrator, Asta has been trying to get this changed for years now, because
SSA.
it's a problem. I don't know. Matter of fact, Lee, it was on the education committee's agenda for this time last year. It was supposed to be addressed in the fall, and then I don't know if it ever was, I lost track of it.
My other question would be on the the speech and language positions. You said those were online?
Yes.
Okay, is there any, just being the old special ed person, is there any data showing the effectiveness of?
Good question.
I know it's better than nothing, but,
Right.
you know.
I
Yeah.
don't have an answer to that. I know Katie's like, let's give it a whirl. This person that we had virtual with us last year apparently did all right virtual. I mean, nothing is as good as the on-site eyeball type stuff. But, you know,
Being as hard as it is to hire a speech and language pathologist,
Yeah.
I imagine we're just taking, obviously, the opportunity to get one.
We must pay them considerably more than, an English teacher in a middle school, don't we?
Well, they're on the same salary
They are.
matrix. However, a speech language person will come in with a master's degree right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Come in with a master's degree and then works their way through that process. But
If we're gonna pay it, in the UW colleges, we got, that we had a very hard time hiring math people, accountant people, and, I don't know, there was one other. So I chaired the faculty senate at that point, and we didn't have a union. We didn't have a union at all. And we just had to bite the bullet and say, well, they started a higher starting pay. I mean, we had to do the market. And even, computer science people, it was still hard to find people, but, we wouldn't have had a snowball's chance if we hadn't. Of course, there were people in sociology and history that were pissed, but, that somebody was more valuable than they were, but, that's just the way it goes.
yeah, you're spot on, Carrie, because in my previous life, I had a couple situations with school psychologists.
Yeah.
And not being able to staff that appropriately. And the long and the short was, we were underpaying, just like you're alluding to.
Yeah.
And we were losing them, we're in the valley, so we're losing them. We had 8 FTEs, we were down to 3. I had to go to the board and say, I gotta do something here.
Yeah, for sure.
And we did, you're absolutely correct. I mean, they were coming in at that time in the mid-60s.
Yeah.
Whereas a beginning teacher was 45. But that's what you had to do because of that market. If you didn't do it, you couldn't keep them, and you couldn't get them.
Well, all those people have other choices, like if you have a degree in history or English, you don't get a lot of offers in business. But people in computer science and even mathematics and that, they've really got other choices that are much more lucrative than teaching. But I don't know. It's right now. It seems in the state of Wisconsin that we're not producing what the society needs, and yet they still have a horrible budget for the university and threaten them with political things if they don't come into line on stuff. And it's just not a really good productive sort of use of education.
Got anything else, Michael?
I don't.
Any other questions for Mike before we release him?
No, I appreciate
appreciate
your work and your knowledge, and I'm glad you're working for us.
Good job.
Thank you.
Lee,
As opposed to yes.
Hollis
As
introduction.
opposed to again.
Policy introductions. So there's the slate of introductions for the month of September. Prior to the meeting, Matt said he had wanted to bring a couple of those out.
There's
with
just some weird questions that I had on them that I've seen the policies before and I always just kind of squinted at them. I was like, I don't really understand that, so I wanted to ask. And the first one was actually a concern.
Sure.
First one was on policy 8800.
8800, okay.
My question is, where are the patriotic ceremonies portion going and why is it being removed from this policy?
Sure. Let me pull that one up real quick. So I'm gonna try to pull, I'm gonna try to actually get it up here so you can see it real easy. Let's see if it works.
There he is.
Coming up. Going. Okay, great. So, yeah, I'll pull it up and show you here. So whenever you're looking at these, this is just in general when you're looking at the Neola stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So what you're gonna see on this policy is some of the policy choices that we have. You'll notice the little check mark box things where we can pick and choose things. Other policies, such as this, just get updated. So we passed this policy in 2014. We updated it in 2018. So what's happened now is, since we haven't updated it since then, Neola itself updates its policy. So if you look at this policy, you'll see some stricken out portions and some green portions. Really what this is showing you is Neola took out all of the red and they put in the green. Or the greens, or the white would kind of remain the same. So they either changed the language or did this. So, for example, when I got this policy to review, it didn't offer me any choices of, like, some of them you'll see the check marks and you'll see which one we chose over which one. This one doesn't, some of them just say, we updated the language. And in this case, Neola removed the language in patriotic ceremonies from the title, and then they removed the language in the policy where you see the stricken thing. So, you know, as any policy that come before you, if there is something in the old version that you wanted to keep, you could indeed vote to amend the policy to include language that has been removed in a sense by the Neola folks whose legal team and/or their advisors creating the policies do. That's why we give them to you like this, though, so that you can see
The
what.
colored stuff is the old work, huh?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't.
And I did understand that whatever's stricken out is something they're removing, whatever is green is something they're adding, and whatever's left
correct.
alone stays the same.
Correct.
So right away, then, I'm gonna be honest with you, give you my opinion, and I would motion that we take the stricken portion out of there, removing the patriotic ceremonies and reinstate it. I don't have too much of an issue with some of their other things that are in there, but,
In the title, you're saying?
no, and that stricken portion right there, you see, and in the title and in underneath it.
And underneath?
Yeah. Cause you don't wanna,
Yeah, I didn't even read the red stuff. I read the green stuff, but I didn't read the red
right,
stuff.
well, yeah, I guess it all depends how you're looking at it. That's the first one that I looked at, obviously, because, you know, something I'd be concerned with. I'm just, it was flabbergasted. I'm like, wow, why are we attacking this now? That's, to me, is outrageous. So,
Then we should do that.
yeah, I think that,
Maybe you shouldn't do it.
I think that we should, you know, evaluate their green stuff, the green stuff that they want to add, but the removal of any of the other stuff, I would just keep. That's just my opinion.
Matt, just so I'm clear, when we do so do you anticipate making amendments to this on the floor at the regular board meeting, or do you want to amend here in committee? What are
I
your?
personally would like to amend it here in committee, just because I wouldn't even want to bring it to the floor unless we got this taken care of first. Because otherwise, they're going to ask us to send it back here and get it worked out.
So
Yeah.
can we postpone this one till next month? Then we can look at it and come up with changes. and-
Oh, let's-
Yeah, we can pull it
Given
from
that,
those.
I mean, I don't like doing stuff on
I
the
agree.
floor because it,
Yep, I agree.
That
We'll
sounds-
pull 8800.
That sounds reasonable.
pull that
Okay.
one and
Yeah,
let's
that's
look at it.
I'll bring it back for.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Good suggestion.
Okay. And then you had another one or two, didn't you?
Yep, what were they?
9270, you said?
Oh, yeah.
I'll pull that one up on here as well.
Um,
This one is,
Oh, home base.
home-based, private, or tribal schooling.
There was a portion in there where it talks about, I just asked if you could please explain the shall not allow any student portion. And is that normal? Why is that normal? And what's the purpose for treating anyone differently?
Are you talking under, in that second stanza, private education or tribal school education students?
Yes,
This-
and where it
this
says
one right
about
here.
participating in,
Extracurricular,
non,
non-academic, yeah.
Sure.
correct, and then also I think it's non-WIA or something events,
Yeah.
things like that. Is that a liability, something that we do because they're not normally, with us? I mean, I was just kind of looking for an explanation for that, because if I had a homeschooled student or something like that, or in any other part of that, I would be kind of like, why do they get to do it and my kid can't? I just wanted to know. Is that
Yeah, I had
normal?
questions about that too.
Yeah.
Do we get an FTE for them in terms of revenue?
No, it should.
So
say
why
that.
should they participate in
So if-
extracurricular stuff?
Let me just give you an example of something that could happen. So as principal of Lincoln, once in a while, we would have some of our students from, let's say, the Lutheran High School or Rock Holly, who would want to take, like, let's say AP, whatever it would be. We got them in, we got them a spot in the class, we got them a locker, all those things, but they weren't really our students. We allowed them to take the course because of this policy. So the first thing, what I heard is a couple questions. So if we walk through this portion right here in green, the board shall not allow any student who's being educated at a private or tribal school to participate in any of the district's non-WIA sanctioned athletic or extracurricular programs. So what that basically is saying is, first of all, there's rules with the WIA anyway. You can't be attending that school and then come and play
But
basketball.
I do know homeschooled students can play in our.
Homeschool is different. That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. Homeschool is different. They have a right to participate in interscholastic athletics. What we did honestly with this policy, this was one of those where, I don't know, when I looked at it, I'm wondering, well, this could have even maybe been one of our mirroring ones. So what we basically did is, we looked back at the policy that we did have in place, which was last revised to 2015. And we kept the language and the rules the same as they have been, because we figured, but we're probably better off keeping things consistent, because our parochial friends and they all know what the rules are. And if we change them, then that might cause some confusion. So really what we did with these recommendations is we left what we've done as a district in place. But as you can see, we could allow for these things, and some districts do. We have not in the past. That's why we kept it that way. But it is definitely, it's up to the board.
Yeah, I guess I would,
Oh,
I'm fine with sending this on, and I would just make sure that I'll keep it on my radar to let everybody know during the meeting to look at this, because
Yeah.
I defer to their opinion as well, because I don't know. I know we haven't done it in the past, but is that something that we want to look at?
And in the meantime, what I can do is I can tell you how many exact number of kids we have that even meet this criteria.
Okay.
So that might, like, we're talking less than a handful, I'm sure. But we'll sift through and find out how many we have.
Okay, yeah, that would be nice. I guess depending upon honestly, maybe the number might not be too big of a decision maker for me, because if it's less than a handful, then I'd say, why wouldn't, let them do,
Sure.
I don't know what the purpose would be. Somebody might have other information to make me.
I think the only thing from like the principal lens, if you're just coming into my school for one class, I really don't know you probably. And they're probably just saying, well, you have another school you can do these things in, do them there. Because you are, in this case, that's where homeschool's different. Homeschool, they don't have any other opportunities. Anyone who would come to us either via a private school or a tribal school would have likely those same opportunities in their home school.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have the greatest coaches like we do.
Can't argue with you there.
Would it make sense just to bounce it off the other two, the Roncalli system, and
Sure.
it's just how they would feel if we would change that? I mean,
Sure.
they they may not like the kids leaving for activities somewhere else,
That's true.
why not?
so
Yeah.
they might not.
And that might encourage us to do it even more. Because we want to get those.
It might be a way to,
We're trying to make it a destination, and the thing is, we gotta show them everything we got.
Refund the vouchers, shouldn't we?
Okay.
Partial refund.
Did not.
Next one was
Yeah, let me see here.
4122.02.
4122, okay. Oh, my thing disconnected here. I gotta reconnect.
I guess my question is, what the heck is this?
Yeah,
Did we have this before?
Which?
Yeah, let me-
what's the-
What
what's
does
the-
genetics have to do with an employee?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a portion about DNA testing in there.
Yeah, that's an interesting policy.
Yeah, another part about getting information from social media. What is going on in this whole policy and why is, what is going on? I don't,
Yeah.
I read it and I'm just like,
I don't know what
What
it's
the hell's going
protecting
on?
us from.
It- so the basis of the policy
Yeah.
is so that if you, okay, in the new world we live in, 23andMe, Ancestry, all that, our DNA is now out there
Yeah,
in these
sure.
databases.
Sure.
What this is saying is, we can't use any of that to discriminate against someone's employment.
oh, so
So
we
in other
can't,
words,
yeah,
if you
okay.
found out that someone has a genetic disposition towards a certain illness, that would impact our, potentially, could impact like health insurance.
Yeah,
and
right,
self-employed.
exactly, right.
This is basically saying, we can't use
Not a
that,
factor.
yeah, we can't use those things to do.
Okay,
It's a protection for employees.
thanks for the explanation, because I'm just,
I know some of these you read them and they're like,
I'm like, are you kidding me? What the?
Yeah, I was wondering that one too.
yep,
That's it.
okay, thanks. So just to clarify, we're pulling 8,800 till next month. And then the rest of the slate you could move forward, comfortable with? And then I'm gonna check in with Ron Colley and Lutheran on the,
I would just say, hey, we're changing this.
yep,
Haven't done it in the past, but
yep,
How would that affect you?
any input. Okay,
Yeah, that's good.
okay. 4 was gathering information on parent bill of rights, and my reason for phrasing it this way is what I'd like to do is find out information that we could develop rather than going through what happened last time and what could happen again this time I don't want this policy to change every school board election.
Yeah,
So if we can take what's on the right and what's on the left and come to some middle ground on different information by looking at different bills of rights in different places, that would be where I'd like to start this discussion. Find out what's out there. I mean, we have ours that is a pretty basic policy, but let's find out what other schools are doing and say, does this fit here?
yeah.
Rather than getting into trying to craft one and do that right away, let's get the information first.
I'm up for that. I've been talking to a few people, even on what you'd say the right or the left on both sides. And some are for if we would go through and figure out which parts of this Parents' Bill of Rights is already protected by certain policies. And then we could address the ones that aren't. As guidelines or make them policy
Right.
or whatever.
And I guess that's what I'm looking at is what can we do that makes it a policy that is going to stand the test of time, that's fair to everybody and that we can do and get it done and we don't have to worry about who gets elected and we're going to change this thing. And I think that's, that way, if we get the information, put it together, I think we can come up with agreement on stuff. It's going to be a longer process, but
I'm okay with that because one of the things that everybody was concerned with, or at least what I know Matt and even Tony were concerned with on the other meeting was getting rid of one, replacing it with other. So if we take a little bit more time to go through it, I haven't got a problem.
okay. And I think the other
Yes.
aspect, just to point out is, we're probably not gonna find a lot of districts who have a policy called Parent Bill of Rights. A Parent Bill of Rights is really a statement of intent of what priorities you want within your policies. So, I see there's a couple ways to go. Like Biff said, we can take a look and see what other language some other folks have. And if we can come to some consensus around something, you may be able to add. So, when I say add, I mean this. Our current policy, 5780, student parent rights, you'll see there's some basic rights in here. Some that you will see in the traditional parent bill of rights, like having access to curriculum and being able to express concerns about it and such and such. And that's in here. One option the board has is if you come up with what it is you want included or prioritized, you could add administrative guidelines to a policy like this that already exists that expressly communicates your intent. That's the point, and procedures. That's why there are administrative guidelines to take a policy like this and say, what we will really do in these situations is X, Y, and Z. That's one option. The other option is if you want to just, as a general board, make a statement about things that you care about in policy as a guiding document for the board as it relates to all of these policies when they come at you. That's also something. But in terms of us finding a policy itself that says this is this, because like you said,
There's several.
it impacts so many. Yeah.
But there are also, I think it's gonna take some time. like
Yep,
with this,
yeah.
Because there are portions in there that, like he said, is it gonna change with a different election?
Correct.
Because there are things in there that I'm concerned with,
Yep.
that other people won't be concerned with. And how do you come to a middle ground on that? And we can choke each other over it, seriously, and it'll look ugly. But I've come to the conclusion that if we can somehow compromise and work together on it, we might be better off.
I think the other part of this is I'm not sure how much parents are aware of the power that they have to make decisions like this in school. That a lot of the concerns that are there, usually a principal, superintendent, whoever will walk the parents through problems like that and usually come up with a solution. And I don't think parents realize that, you know, we've done this in the past. They've had these rights in the past, but do parents really know they have that right? You know what I mean? That if there is a concern, you can do something about it and it doesn't affect.
Which could be what a policy or a guideline of intent
So,
would be.
yeah, so they know.
Raising his hand. Biff?
I have a quick question, if you
Yeah.
guys don't mind. Lee, I'm curious, is there any issue with, some of the items in the guidelines, weren't really related to any existing policies? And, specifically, I'm thinking about the gender pronouns and the parental consent for that. And I know we have procedures for restrooms for transgender students, but we have no formal policy on that. Is that an issue? And should that be something that, if we're gonna have a guideline, shouldn't that tie to a policy? Or is that not?
Typically, if you write an administrative guideline, you do want it to tie to the specific policies.
Yeah.
So just as an example, we have the complaints policy that exists for if people have any issues with curriculum items or library books or those things. What typically will happen is a district will also, when they pass that policy, they'll include an administrative guideline, which really specifies in more detail how the procedure that's sort of loosely outlined in the policy will be done in our district. And so, yes, in many cases, and I will say this because I'm in Neola a lot, we have very few administrative guidelines as opposed to some of the other districts that we would consider comparable. So yes, it would make sense to add administrative guidelines where we can, lay out the letter of
Or add
how we're going to do
policies.
things.
Or add policies to those guidelines that we want to implement.
I think it's the other way around. I think
Yeah.
You have to have the policy. And
The
then-
policy,
Right.
the
That's what I'm
administrative
saying.
guidelines enhance or spell out what will
Correct.
happen with that policy.
So right now, as he was talking about with those gender role issues and
Yeah.
things like that, that may concern some parents
So-
and not concern others.
So
We don't have policies on that.
what we have, so the way they would look at it is every district has policies, practices, and procedures. So in absence of a policy, they would say, what is your practice? What do you do? Or what is your procedure? And the district would say, oh yeah, well, we have a procedure for this. It's written out here, let's say in our handbook, right? Because there's procedures in Mike's employee handbooks
Sure.
that aren't in our policies, right? So they'd look at policy first. Oh, no, you don't have that. What's your procedure? Oh, we don't have that. What's your practice?
Right.
And as long as your practice is uniform, then you don't have a problem. The problem we get into in particularly the non-discrimination policies, is if we have a practice in this place over here in the district, and then a practice that deals with the same thing over here that's done differently. And then if there's inconsistency. So long answer to the short is, if you want to protect yourself to the ultimate degree, you write administrative guidelines that spell it all completely out. If there are questionable, if it's really a question of how this will be implemented.
Or interpreted by.
Or interpreted by others.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but those guidelines, if I recall, were specifically related to 2240, right? That policy? Or-
Are you talking about in the last board meeting where they
Well,
had the
I'm talking about the
administrative?
Bill of Rights, yeah, those guidelines.
Those were written as administrative guidelines for the controversial issues policy.
Yeah, 2240.
Correct, yep, that is accurate. Those guidelines apply directly to that policy.
So it does kind of actually go with a policy.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we voted to disconnect them.
That's
I
accurate.
mean, my, you know, I was the loudest voice, I think, on that one. I objected, not necessarily on content. I mean, I privately object to some of those on content, but the fact is that what the superintendent wrote didn't apply to, you know, the controversial issues, which was a policy for how to use controversial issues in the instructional program. It didn't say, oh, well, every controversy, it didn't deal with like how we as a board, you know, or as a system deal with controversial issues. Like it may be the nickname thing is a controversial issue that, you know, somebody wants to take up, but that wasn't what the policy was about. The policy was about instruction.
Yeah, and I guess I want to time out because I don't want to get into the discussion
Yeah.
stuff. I want us to gather the information and let's kind of come up with a
Yeah,
solution.
I agree with the gather of the
That-
information
that-
stuff, yeah.
I don't want to go through the arguments we've been through for 2 years. Doesn't make sense.
So when I already, Mike's got a connected program that he can do a call out to the other districts in the state to say, do you have this policy or one like it on your books? And then they'll respond. And then when we get our responses, we can take a look at what specifically they have and bring them back.
Yeah,
So let's,
but so, I guess gathered information on, and the topic sentence in what you were talking about, the topic sentence there was parents' bill of rights. So let's just stick to that, and let's not get into, you know, nicknames and bathrooms. Right?
Well,
let's see what's out there.
I think that's kind of what I'm trying to protect, to be honest with you. But I understand what you're talking about
Yeah.
when you say about in the classroom, as opposed to instructional curriculum, things like that.
Right.
Versus broad spectrum throughout our district. Not necessarily the classroom, just overall covering our students.
And that's why I was bringing up what I asked Lee earlier, you know, because it was pretty broad and, you know, I wasn't sure if there could be an issue. If I understand Lee right, I know we have practices, right? You know,
Mhm.
procedures,
We definitely have
whatever you call them,
practices.
so I know you've walked us through that.
And those are universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a different issue. I mean,
Maybe we
we've
could
got
make that a policy and a
three
text.
kinds of issues here.
Well, I know, Carrie, I hear what you're saying. I guess what I'm getting at, what concerns me, and I don't speak for Matthew, but I think he's.
Yeah,
the
sure.
same way. There's a lot of parents that, you know, just want to understand how that's being handled and, you know, because these are issues that, you know, some parents don't want their kids exposed to in a school setting. So just trying to find a way that we could all make this work for everybody.
Sure, of
And-
course,
And
yeah.
that's, you know, certainly my objective and, you know, just respecting individuals, but just making sure that, you know, we avoid what happened in other districts as we talked about in the past, right?
Yeah.
Like with-
Okay, I'm on board with that.
And to that point, what I would say should give you confidence is that as an administrative team in schools, principals are on the same page with how to handle that. And again, as a principal for 12 or 14, I forget, but you deal with those because you have relationships with people. So you're going to work to help someone get what they need by not interrupting the rest of your school environment. And 9.9 times out of 10, because of that relationship and because the principals know and understand priorities of families and protecting others, that works out. I get what you're saying about wanting to make sure we're protected and we know that, but the bottom line is as weeks go by in our school year, these things happen and we don't know about it because principals, staff members, case managers communicate with each other to meet the needs without impacting the rest of the
I
group.
totally get it.
And
I
that's
totally
where,
get it.
if I could just real quick, yeah, that's where we need to make sure that there's consistency in how that's applied.
Correct.
And there's
Yeah.
not one-offs
Yeah.
throughout the district. And that's
Correct.
why I was thinking, I'm like, well, gee, because if there are procedures, as you said, and practices, I don't know if there's an area that the board can see what we have. I mean, I know you've articulated some of those in meetings, but
Yeah.
it might be
Yeah,
good to
I-
know just if there is an area that's similar to policies, right? But just another section, that'd be good to know.
And we need to hit those. I know not everybody's comfortable talking about that because they're fear of being labeled a certain way. But the reason why we're doing that is because, and I totally understand, there are people in this room that hate me for even bringing it up. However, half the people feel this way, half the people feel the other way. So we're gonna fight all the time, or we're gonna figure it out.
That's the plan. Try to come to some common ground in the middle, so every parent feels like they have that right. Okay, I'll work on that. Last issue is the same kind of discussion on the dress code. Tony brought up a concern he had with a shirt that a teacher was wearing during summer school. My concern is if we don't have a dress code, or how do we develop a dress code? My experience in the high school when I was there is it's very hard to enforce dress codes with students.
I just went through that this morning with my daughter. Good Lord, don't change.
It's amazing how many times a student has clothes to change into that are hanging in the locker after you say,
Oh, yeah.
but my concern is we can't target certain things. You're concerned about the rainbow on the shirt. If we go there, there's gonna be parents complaining about kids who have gun club shirts on at Lincoln that have a gun on them. There's gonna be concerns about teachers wearing St. Christopher medals or crosses or Stars of David or satanic, necklaces. It's another thing that we have to look at seriously and go, how far can you say yes, no to different things people wear?
Well, to be
It's
honest,
not an easy
It's the First
thing.
Amendment thing, isn't it?
Well, that's,
it is, but
and that's what we have to look at is how are schools handling this without having to go to a complete uniform that everybody has to wear all the time.
I
So,
personally,
so I don't want to discuss it, but how do we get that information so we can see what other places are doing?
I was gonna say, I thought that was more, I understand with the dress code, and that makes sense. And I would agree, honestly, whether it's crosses, Stars of Davids, or satanic symbols, just like this that I wear every day, people don't need to see it. So one of those things is, I'm not really concerned with the dress code. I think people should just be themselves, but isn't that more covered under controversial issues? I think that's the 2240 I think we were talking about in the classroom.
That's what I thought, and just to clarify my concerns, Biff, I'm not really concerned with, and I agree with what you're saying as far as First Amendment goes. I don't think we could really regulate what kids wear to school as much as we can control what, or at least have policies for
employees.
staff, right,
Right.
for employees. And here's what's appropriate and what's not appropriate in the workplace. And I think there's a difference between, First Amendment rights when you're not at work, it's free time versus when you're on the clock. And that's what I'm suggesting is, there's a lot of families in the district that, would be pretty upset like I was when we came across again, staff member, you got 7-year-old kids, they're wearing shirts that 7-year-olds, are gonna ask questions about and just gonna lead to invite conversations that a lot of parents don't want their kids having with adults.
Which is technically part of the policy that incites a conversation, and leads into, or that's kind of how it's introduced or described within 2240. So I understand the dress code.
I understand your concern, but that means that on football day, I can't wear my University of Hawaii jersey.
Why is that?
because they're the rainbows.
Oh,
Rainbow
really?
Warriors.
Oh,
So I can't wear that because it would offend somebody.
Well, it's-
So what I'm saying is, the offense is in the eye of the person looking. And how do we how have schools done that? That's what I want to look at, so we don't get into this every time this issue comes up. Or every time there's an election and the school board changes everything.
This is a 17th century issue.
But it's something that, how do different schools handle this? Do we have a dress code for teachers? Probably not. Do we need one? Maybe that's a discussion. Do districts have that? But we can't just take one issue that happens and then say this. We have to look at the whole problem, if there is a problem.
Right, well, and just to elaborate further a bit, you know, we're not talking about someone wearing a rainbow jersey that's the color of an actual team. You know, we're talking about a staff member that wore a shirt that said, "We are all human," with human and rainbow colors. So what's the little kid gonna think, hey, what's that about, right? You know, assuming they read what it says, it's just gonna invite conversations that a lot of parents don't want their kids having with teachers.
Maybe it's the conversation you have with your child if they ask you. I don't know if this teacher exposed anything in the classroom. I don't know. But that's just wearing it, unless we have that policy on all kinds of things. We can't say you can't wear it unless there's a policy that says staff can't do that.
I think.
But if you're gonna go there, then get ready for other things that the staff isn't gonna be able to wear that you may think is appropriate. If somebody wears crosses, earrings, and they can see those, is that appropriate? Now, to me, it is, but somebody else may not like that. So we're gonna have to look at this more broadly than just rainbows. And that's why I want information from places other than just here. How do different places handle this situation?
Wow.
I'll tell you, it's a real slippery thing. I mean, in the province of Quebec in Canada, well, first of all, you know, they prohibit certain languages being used. I mean, it all has to be in French, but they got all twisted up because Canada has a pretty open immigration policy, and there were a lot of Muslims that started to move into the province of Quebec, and they wore their headscarves and they wore their religious symbols, et cetera, et cetera. So they had a province-wide law that no civil servant could wear anything that suggested or proclaimed any kind of religious affiliation. Couldn't wear crosses, couldn't wear headscarves, couldn't wear, etc. The problem was that they thought they could do it, but the fact is that it gets into First Amendment things. I mean, Canada doesn't have a First Amendment, but it certainly has legislation dealing with freedom of expression. So what happens is not only did it cause a lot of acrimony within the province, bad relations between ethnic groups and et cetera, but it also became a very slippery kind of legal situation. So what do they end up doing? They end up repealing the whole damn thing and just saying it is not an issue to have a civil war. So,
I'm not suggesting we have a civil war. I mean, I'm just suggesting that we exercise some common sense with what's age appropriate and, what kinds of conversations we want 7-year-old kids having. That's it.
but I mean,
I just,
being a historian,
the
and,
last thing I'm
the
ever
17th
gonna say
century.
is this, but
He's got the floor.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't want to sound rude, but I don't want to do anything that Canada does.
Oh, okay.
Nothing, and at all. If people in Canada ate a lot of corn, I'll just never eat corn in my life. I don't care what it is, but whatever they do, I want to do the opposite.
I just used it as an example. That's okay.
Yes.
So I gave you some hard copies of 3 policies related to staff dress and grooming. These are Neola policies. There's 3216, which deals with professional staff. So that would be our teachers and other folks would fall under that. Then we would have, there's also 4216, which is a support staff dress and grooming. And then the third is 5511, and that is dress and grooming for students. None of these are currently in our policy manual. I will point out one thing. When you're looking at 3216 and 4216, you might look at it and say, gosh, this is pretty vague. One of the reasons it is because of what you were just discussing. Many school policies related to dress do get challenged because of the First Amendment. And what I will tell you, the trend in our country is that the First Amendment is being protected on these cases more often than it was in the past. So, for example, there have been schools that have recently been challenged or challenging. So, just as an example, it was a case. Kid had a Second Amendment shirt on with some, guns and things, and I don't know whatever else on there. Went to the courts. The court said, "Yeah, the kid can wear it because it's his First Amendment right." And in other cases, such as that, the courts have been ruling pretty consistently. So if we do go down that road, I think what we just want to make sure is, I think it is a good idea to see, maybe find a couple around the state that are a little more restrictive. And then I'm sure many of them are going to look like this though.
Right.
Because again, the more that you do restrict, the more you do open up for challenges around things like First Amendment. So,
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents on these. And if you want to bring back with recommendations at some point, we can certainly bring back on next month and bring back what we find.
That'd be great, since we got stuff to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's hard. I think it's hard when you talk the difference between 32 and 4216 versus 5511. Because you're talking about an employee versus someone's child. I'm not for, I would never give my daughter a Second Amendment t-shirt and send her with guns on her t-shirt. It's just not a place for it in school. However, I would send her with a Jesus t-shirt. You know what I mean? It's just whether it's violence or whatever. So I totally get it. And as far as kids go, I think it's hard to do that. But with staff members, you gotta wear what you gotta wear. Green Bay Packers ain't gonna wear a University of Hawaii Warrior Rainbows jersey because they
There's
gotta
been
wear
a
the
real
Packers
evolution
jersey.
in what staff, hasn't there?
It's just I'm just throwing it out there, but I get what you're saying.
Yep.
So if you gather that information, appreciate it, send out another one of those things that you could do, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we have connections, we have a spreadsheet all set up to go with about 35 stations, I remember correctly, what I've used in the past. We'll fire it out.
Good.
Get back.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, we have no other business.
Motion adjourned.
We have a second.
Yeah, I'll say.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
What time is it? I don't know.
There you go.